This evening, the Senate fell 3 votes short of the necessary margin to repeal the ban on gays serving openly in the United States military. And tonight, President Obama issued this challenge. Try again. There could be another effort. A bipartisan group of senators plans to file new legislation calling for repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But one of them, Republican Susan Collins of Maine, says it wouldn't be necessary if Majority Leader Harry Reid had given negotiators just a little bit more time before calling today's vote.
There was a clear path forward to victory on this issue and to consideration of this bill. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why the Majority Leader chose not to take it.
The Human Rights Campaign also questioned Senator Reid's tactics and its president. Joe Solomonese joins us along with Paul Wagala, and Ed Rollins is still with us from New York. Joe, I want to get to that point. Susan Collins, Joe Lieberman say, give us another day. We would have gotten you the 60 votes. Why did Harry Reid not listen? Your organization said, Senator, please let them figure this out.
You know, I was in a lot of those meetings, and the one thing that I would say, which mirror what Senator Collins said, is that there was a path forward. There was absolutely a path forward. Now, whether that path was less acceptable to the Democratic leadership or the Republicans who support the merits of repeal, we're now up to about 5 or 6, is something they're going to argue about for a long time. The fact of the matter is that there was a path forward. I think Senator Lieberman and Collins...
But did Senator Reid let you down?
Well, I think everybody involved in this process let the community down. You know, I mean, every one of the players in this process let the community down, because the fact of the matter was that there was a path forward. And, you know, whether it was the White House, the Democratic leadership, the Republicans who supported this bill, I have to believe we could have found that way forward and we could have gotten it done.
Ed Rollins, come into the conversation. Why is this one so tough, number one? And number two, with the short time left in this lame duck session, now Susan Collins, Joe Lieberman, Senator Udall, they're going to introduce their bill. Many thought maybe the House would go first, where there's much more support. Nancy Pelosi said in a statement tonight, no, the Senate will go first, because she doesn't want to go through this again, where the House passes something only to see it die in the Senate. What next?
Well, I think clearly, you know, if there's 3 or 4 other Republicans who come on board and Susan Collins is the negotiator there, you've got to listen to her. And what difference does it make? This has been a long, hard battle. If it's 3 or 4 more days or whatever, it's, you know, this is a controversial issue, and to get it right, and to basically have the support, bipartisan support, you've got to basically let everybody have their voice. And a couple days of debate on this issue is probably fundamentally more important than anything else that they're doing there.
But there's
I would argue very strenuously on that.
But Paul, there's a huge trust deficit in this town on just about anything, especially and more so on the controversial stuff, in the sense that now everyone's going to say we have to get home for Christmas. Now they have to renegotiate the tax cut deal, which is in disarray. Then the president wants to get START through, and many would argue START is more of a priority to him, and that would upset Joe. So how do they figure all this out when they're looking at a calendar saying we got to go?
Right. And by the way, they probably have to pass it on. They absolutely have to pass this little detail of funding the government of the United States. I have to say, I think Senator Collins' position is preposterous. She is on the committee of jurisdiction. They've had 33 subcommittee or committee hearings on this bill. She's had 9.5 months to play around with it. And now, with the clock ticking, with a major nuclear arms treaty at risk, with a major tax deal, with the entire federal government at risk, now she's blowing up a deal because she doesn't like the way the majority leader scheduled the timing. And so now you have the position where Republicans who say they're for the bill are actually voting against it. This is the old saying, sometimes in politics you have to rise above principle.
Well, so here's one of the things I think drives everybody in America crazy. Maybe they have different views on this issue, but it comes up on issue after issue after issue. Why, if the Collins-Lieberman-Udall bill might have a chance standing alone, why didn't this morning in the middle of these negotiations, Harry Reid said, you know what, let's break this off from the defense authorization bill. Here, introduce it. See if you have the 60 votes. Do it today.
I think one point to remember, Susan Collins did vote the right way. She voted yes today. She voted yesterday.
And how many people did she bring? Harry Reid brought everybody in his party except one. How many did she bring?
Right. And look, and let's not lose sight of the fact, the principal obstructionist to overturning Don't Ask, Don't Tell, who should not be forgotten in this conversation, is John McCain. But at the very least, what this does, I mean, you know, if we're looking for a path forward, is it answers all of the objections. It says that people like Lisa Murkowski and Scott Brown and others will go if it's done after the tax vote is done. You know, I mean, it at least gives us a path forward.
But see, I have more respect for a guy like McCain who says, I'm against you, I'm going to vote against you, and then does it, than I do for Scott Brown or Lisa Murkowski or any of these other Republicans who say, I'm for you, Joe, but I'm going to vote against you because my feelings are hurt by Harry Reid's scheduling decisions.
I have a lot less respect for John McCain than I do for Lisa Murkowski.
But Paul, the bottom line is it's a whole new game. And the 42 Republicans who basically laid out, if you want our votes to give you your 60, you got to do these 2 or 3 things. They're entitled to that. You don't have 60 votes anymore. And basically, Collins or anybody else breaking away from that pact they signed is breaking the discipline that Republicans need. You've had discipline on your side. We're going to have discipline on our side in the future. And I think this is an important issue. I think you can get the votes. It's not easy to get Republican votes, but you can get Republican votes enough to probably get it passed if you just listen a little bit.
Do you trust, Joe, what the Pentagon fears? Some in the Pentagon don't want to change the policy. You know that all too well. But Secretary Gates, one of the reasons he has come around so aggressively is he sees these court decisions, and what he's worried about is being told to do it tomorrow as opposed to getting Congress to pass a bill that gives him 6 months or a year to implement it. But do you trust, if this makes its way through the courts, maybe you win at a district court in this state or an appeals court in that district, do you trust this Supreme Court? If this case makes it to the Supreme Court, if Congress doesn't act, or is that why you say the Congress must do this and do it now?
I mean, let's not forget, there's a scenario under which this comes before the Ninth Circuit in February, and we win, and the White House has the option to not defend this, and we wake up in February with this policy over with. And then there is no implementation time. You know, you're right. The reason Gates argued so strenuously for the legislative route is because it put the implementation control into the hands of he and Mullen and the president.
We're out of time, but if you had to make a bet tonight, will this be done by the end of the year, or will your fight continue?
After a day like today? Who knows? But look, I'm optimistic because, as I said, I think that it certainly clears a lot of the hurdles and a lot of the objections that those Republicans had moving forward.
Joe Solomon, appreciate it. Paul Begel and Ed Rollins as well.